Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Emily Maynard, and I am the grant project manager for the California Community Colleges Real Estate Education Center. There's a few new faces here and then some classic participants. So thanks for joining us on a Monday afternoon. Really, the purpose of today's faculty forum is to further discuss work experience and education, what the requirements are, how they've changed, and then how does that apply to real estate in particular, since we know there's some specific requirements about our discipline and where students can work and where they can get work experience that it will allow them to take the jobs that they're already in or places where they're already working, opportunities that they want to pursue, and how they can also get college credit for those efforts. So today we have two panelists with us. Unfortunately, the third wasn't able to join us today, but I'm going to be asking a series of questions. And then if you have questions as we go along too, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. This can be a little bit more of a discussion as we go along to hopefully figure out together as a statewide collective better ways to serve our students, make sure they have great opportunities to get as much credit as they can while they're in our programs, and great jobs when they're done with our programs. So I will ask both of our panelists to just introduce themselves. Mary Ellen, if you can just start, tell me a little bit about how long you've been teaching and then your experience specifically with work experience education.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Ellen Brady. I'm the real estate department chair at Cerritos College. I have been teaching for approximately 19 years. I've been a realtor for 35 years. I was very active in the business, traveling throughout the state on committees and such before getting into teaching. So I have very good connections still in the industry. And I am able to ask those people, if they want to be involved on my advisory committees and on in participating in the work experience program. So I've been very fortunate that way.
Great. Elena?
Hi, I'm Elena Gates. I am chair of the real estate department at Santiago Canyon College. I've been licensed since 2006 as a realtor, and I still actively participate with, I'm actually Pro Standards chair, so I do arbitration and mediation at the association I'm presiding officer over hearings. I've been teaching since 2014, and it was quite the transition to go from industry to education, the red tape that comes along with it. So learning a lot about that, and just happy to be here and answer whatever questions we can. And hopefully we can answer all your questions. If not, we can guide you in the direction to get better answers. So, yeah.
Great. So I'll ask you to put in the chat, if you can go ahead and just put in the chat if your college offers work experience education. And if you don't know, put a question mark or I don't know. I'm curious if how familiar you are with the idea of work experience education at your college. Yes, Santa Rosa Junior College, Santiago Canyon. Great. College of the Canyons. Carol's up there. Not sure. We're working on it. Great. Hopefully this meeting will help a little bit. Some work experience at West Valley College, but not real estate related yet. So that is a perfect opportunity if your college already has some established work experience in another program for you to go to those people at your college and figure out how does the process work specifically at your college. So some of the things we're going to be talking about today are specifically about statewide work experience requirements, and some of them are going to be about how each college interprets some of those rules differently and independently, and then what we can do about the fact that there might be differences across colleges and hopefully create some best practices for how it should work in real estate. Great. So I'm curious, for both Mary Ellen and Elena, how many students are currently using work experience in real estate in your colleges? How many students are enrolled right now, or how many are sort of typical?
I have 25 students enrolled in my classes right now. We do a combination class. 2-unit, 3-unit, and 4-unit students. So we meet all the same day and time. I do it via Zoom. We have a guest speaker who is in real estate. He's also one of the mentors for the program. He's been doing that for me for about a year and a half now. So he really likes it via Zoom. It was very difficult getting mentors to come into the classroom for an hour class on a Tuesday night. It just didn't make any sense. So when the pandemic hit, we developed, our course so that would be available via Zoom. Students love it. The mentors love it. The guest speakers love it. It seems to be extremely popular.
So part of the students' hours that they're getting credit for includes those meetings and
Not
those
yet.
guest speakers. Okay.
Not yet. It
Okay.
will come fall 2024
Great.
because we had to go through curriculum to get the new changes put into place. And I also want to thank you very much, Emily, for inviting the guest speakers that we had because they provided me more information than I ever had gotten from my school. And then I went back to my school immediately and sent an email to everyone. And now everyone's running around like a chicken without a head. Oh my gosh, we got to get this through curriculum. I said, we have 180 days to get this done. You've known since August. I only found out in October.
Yeah. It's hard with those statewide initiatives.
Oh,
They come
yes.
down, you get a million emails a day from the chancellor's office. Somebody's not paying
Exactly.
attention to them.
And we
Okay.
just went through real estate practice with the changes with that. So,
Right.
let the hits keep coming.
Yeah, it's been a challenge, that's for sure. And
Yes.
with the don't feel bad that you didn't find out until October because we actually had a pause that they put on us. They put a hold on us on the 180 days. So the 180 days is actually running from October now through because they put a hold on us for some other changes and some verbiage that was in there that actually John Jaramillo helped straighten out because they had some things in there saying that it wasn't repeatable. And this was not an option. So, yeah, so our times are a little more ahead. So that's really good. I have nowhere near the amount of people that Mary Ellen has at her school. We get one or two. I think the most I've ever had in one semester was 3, but it was brand new just before COVID to me. And then, of course, during COVID, we didn't have anybody that was willing to do any of the not apprenticeship, work experience education. So we're just starting to beef it up now once this gets finished in curriculum and we get all the new forms and everything through SWIA. We'll be going guns a-blazing and getting everything done. And for anybody that doesn't know, SWIA is CIWEA. It is an association that helps with all of the apprenticeship and cooperative work experience programs. And they are amazing.
Mm-hmm. Great.
We're trying to create a best practices and a depository for forms to use and things like that, all on our SWIA website.
That's so helpful because again, there's so many different forms. And anytime someone can create a standard and say everybody just use this, it's good,
Yes.
it's good enough, that always really helps.
And I have something else to add to what Elena said. She just has a few people, and I didn't start out with that many people, but it was my goal to really pump up the real estate program and the internship. And one of the things that we have done, probably getting ahead of myself, but one of the things we had done is we offered it in a certificate as a requirement.
Ah, okay, great. Yes, I would love to hear more about how you built
Yes.
that. So I'm curious for the students who do use work experience education, how do they tend to find out about it?
Me.
So at my school, I've just promoted it myself. I email it to the students that are in each of the courses in my database. And yeah, that's kind of the main thing when we do outreach on campus. I'll have flyers that talk about work experience education.
We do the same.
Great. Do you have other faculty, like do you have all of your real estate faculty in your program talk about it? Or do you feel like that's sort of the responsibility of the person who's most invested in the work experience education?
Have everybody talk about it. I have kind of a blurb that I get the faculty to put out in like week 2 of the class and sort of say, hey, are you aware you could do this? And so it's a pretty easy blurb. My faculty are amazing. They promote everything really, really well and speak about it to all the students really, really well.
I'm a big promoter of it, and since I have access to all the classes, it's easier for me just to develop, the flyer and encourage the students to sign up for the work experience program. I give them a little bit of information, how it's run, what's expected of them. So every semester, I put that out in order to encourage students to apply, and I also encourage them, to get their certificate, and it's required in the certificate, and I tell them how to do that.
Great. How many units is the certificate that you're talking about?
18 units.
Okay. So that includes more than the classes they need for their basic salesperson license, but hopefully gets them a little bit further in their career, some more options, some better.
Correct.
Yeah, perfect. Good. So I know at a lot of colleges there might be multiple levels of certificates too. There might be a smaller certificate, a 9 unit, and then, a larger 18 to 24 unit, and then you're talking about a degree that students can also get there
Yeah.
too.
We have a 24 unit also, and that's geared more toward the broker's license with the additional, few additional classes sprinkled in there, enough to meet the requirements for the major for the AA.
So I'm curious, like, where are the places that students work for their work experience? What are some of the places that you've heard or things that you've seen students do to meet this requirement?
Well, mine primarily is in the real estate offices. However, we have had students go to an appraiser's office, uh, and then they kind of withdrew. They said because of all the changes regarding appraisers and the liability involved. So I haven't not reached back out to them, and we don't have a high demand for appraisal. Also, I had sent one of my students out to one of the real estate offices, and the mentor broker called me up one day and he said, hey, she's really good. I have an opening in my escrow department. Can I hire her? I said, you sure can. And so he hired her. And with the old requirements, there was a different set of hours to be completed if they were being paid. So I let him know that she had to meet at least the minimum of that. I've also had students work in the Rancho Southeast Association Realtors office. That's very close to our college. And they too called me up and said, hey, this guy's so good. Can we offer him a job? And, it's really nice when you hear that. It really is. Most of my real estate offices that work with the students, the majority of the offices do hire the interns once they are licensed. And I've had a student come to me and she just wanted the experience, the work experience itself on her college transcript. She worked for a title company. I've had lenders cooperate with me and they take the students in as interns also for the semester. So we've had quite a variety over the years.
Great. What about you, Elena?
Awesome. Yeah. Um, Mainly brokers' offices at this time, but I am working with an escrow company and the association to get people in there. So the escrow one was great. The other thing we've done is the homeowners association management companies, which has been an interesting process.
Do most of your students come in with an idea of where they want to work, or maybe they already are working at a property management company or some sort of office and they're hoping to get credit for it once they realize that's a possibility? Or do they come to you saying, I want a work experience, but I don't know where to start?
Yeah, that's been my experience. I have had a couple of students who are already working in, it's funny you say property management, but wanted to delve into other areas. But I can't say I've had anybody come in just knowing exactly where they want to go or a particular brokerage in mind or anything like that yet.
I've had a few students throughout the years. They already have family members in the industry, and they wind up working as interns for their family members, and they figure who better to learn from than those in the business. In fact, they encouraged that student to join real estate and get their real estate license. But the majority of my students, I provide them with a list of participating mentors that we've had through the years. First, I go through the list, I call everybody on the list prior to the college, start date, and I ask if they're still interested in mentoring the students. And then I go back around and ask previous mentors, because sometimes they get so busy or there's something else going on in their lives. And they've all been very cooperative. So that's worked out very well for the students. I provide them a list, about 8 to 10 mentors that are available.
That's great. So you have 8 to 10
Mary Ellen,
mentors
I
that
have a
you've
question.
verified, and then
Yeah.
the students reach out and talk
I
about
always,
getting
yeah,
jobs.
I always tell them to call at least 2 or 3 and interview with them. I said it's the same thing when you're getting into real estate. You want to interview with a few different offices, and you want to see if you're a good fit for them. Somebody else had a question?
It was me. I was going to ask you, do you have them interview? You just answered that question.
That's great. I like that that allows the students to still have to put in some initiative. This isn't
Oh, yes.
something,
They
it's
have
not a
to.
formal internship program where they're just automatically assigned somewhere. It's very
No.
collaborative between
Yes.
faculty in your school and then the resources that you offer.
And I have a lot of students that are not within the school district of Cerritos College. So I like to work with brokers who have multiple offices. That's always helpful. And so I always look for that if I'm looking for a new mentor. I haven't had to look for a new mentor for quite some time, but people change offices, offices change hands. There's a lot of things that go on with the industry. So you really have to keep up with that list to make sure everyone is still cooperating. And in fact, one of the mentors, how I know she changed offices, because usually that's not widely spoken about. And so I saw her Facebook page and saw that she's in a new office. And I immediately called her and say, hey, are you still interested in cooperating? And she said, oh, yeah, I'd love to. Just, give the students my current information. I said, sure. So
Great. Um, what do you do to support online students? Are any of the students who take work experience primarily taking their classes online, or do all of them have some sort of on-campus or at least a local presence?
So mine is 100% online. My program is 100% online for 100% of the students. So, but they understand that the work experience component is a face-to-face situation for the most part, and those that have been interested have been very content and very satisfied with the interactions they've had and the experiences they've had. I think they understand that that practical application really helps them to understand the rest of their coursework.
Mhm.
and with my students, they are remote. So we meet once a week on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and we meet remote. And we've been doing that since the pandemic. And it's worked out very, very well, I must tell you. And this way it's easier to have guest speakers instead of getting them parking passes and permission and everything else like that. I just, okay, click, 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 you're in my meeting. So it works out really well. The students have to be present to do their work experience hours. One of the biggest complaints I hear is in some instances is that the mentor is not always available for the student. And that's one thing I try to express to the mentors, is that the hours have to be worked out between the mentors and the mentee. I don't control those. The students, sometimes have family obligations, another job, school. There's a variety of things going on. And we do have one class this semester that's on ground. And my college is really advocating for students to come back to school. I just don't think that's going to happen. And especially in real estate, and it's futile. And every time we have on ground classes, we wind up either switching them, to second 15 weeks online or second 9 weeks, whatever it is. But You know, they're really pushing that big time, but we've built a lot of new buildings and everything with all these school bonds. And so somebody's got to justify all that. That's the way I look at it. But real estate is not a program that you have to see students face to face, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree with that. And in our college, in and of itself, the whole campus is at above 60% online classes now.
Yeah, and in real estate classes, we're really strong online presence across the state even before 2020,
Oh,
where,
yeah,
we
mine's been
switched
online.
from 60% online to 100% online, and now I think we're back at about 85 to 90%. There's only a few classes that are being held in person. Um, we know that our students are maybe look a little different than the average student in some other disciplines just because our students are more likely to be older, they're more likely to be doing this as a career pivot or second or third career, reentry into the workforce in some way. So I think it makes sense to have a lot of online opportunity. And it's great to hear that we can even facilitate workforce experiences when we're dealing with students online or maybe in a broader service area.
Yeah,
Can
Jennifer
you?
makes a good point.
Yeah.
We have people who are often, often our people are our students are on-call careers. These are on-call careers. They're not necessarily coming in at 18. They're coming in after they've done other things, and they want that flexibility to be able to do it. And real estate in and of itself, when you look at the benefits, flexibility of your hours is one of the benefits of being in the real estate industry. So they're looking for that flexibility in learning as well.
Makes a lot of sense. Steve, you have a
Steve,
question. You want to put it in the chat or well, I'll open
I
it up
just
for
want
questions at
to,
the end too.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
What we've done at Santa Rosa, because it's interesting to me, other schools having school bond money to build new buildings. I mean, it seems like the entire
good.
Santa Rosa campus is new. Um, and we had the same issue, especially because we had such a devastating fire up here. It was curious to me what really precipitated students not coming back to campus. But here's what one thing we did. We kind of merged the online offering with a face-to-face offering, meaning this: we have two principles courses where you meet for 2 hours and then 1 hour is online. And so what that really did is it resolved the student complaint of never ever seeing anybody, and then at the same time not having to be in a classroom for 3 hours one night a week. And those classes fill, and the instructors like them, and the students like them. Otherwise, when we have a specialty class where we've got a real hot instructor, like we've got Jim Michelson that teaches, none of you may know him, but he's been part of the group for ages, teaches a practice class. And he really drills down into what happens in a real estate office. And I mean, he acclimated himself to online delivery when we had no choice, but he's really a stand-up guy, meaning he would rather stand up in front of the class. So we offer a practice class, and that fills immediately. And then we have a property management class that the instructor is developing the ability to offer it through a Canvas course online. But because of the amount of guest speakers he has come in and his reputation and the activity in the community that he provides, he gets a lot of guest speakers that are consistent with property management. So that really, I tell students that are asking me, look, there's just there's several classes here. You're just not going to get the bang for your buck. So where we have, I would say about 60% of our program now is offered online. And then 40%, and we're trying to increase that number face to face. And it kind of sounds like everyone else is having the same issue. And let me just throw this out with regard to this internship. To me, the elephant in the room is this. If you go out and get a mentor, that's great. But most of these real estate companies have their own alliance with the real estate company. And this semester, I've had two saying, hey, this is taking too long. I stumbled into this real estate office. They've got a real estate program. I can take this course and that course, be done in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. And then I can go sit for my license. So there's that competition. We had an internship program years ago, back when George Berry, maybe Martin will ring a bell. That might ring, might remind him back in the day. And we got a grant, and it worked, but it didn't work because it's the same thing. Back then, we had a guy who taught up at Redwood Junior College, somewhere in Northern California, that had a distant learning course and a lot of I forget what his name was.
Dennis McKenzie?
Yes, Dennis. And so what would happen, they'd go into a Coldwell Banker, they forget the JC, take Dennis's course, we'll pay for it, and you don't need an internship, and you can start right now. So, to me, I'm wondering, how can this reconcile so that I don't get a student that comes in and then I never hear from him? And then just one last comment. I think I get used, for want of a better word, because I get students that are enrolled in this private provider course where the complaint is we never hear back from anybody. There's no question. They take our course, so they have that interaction. And then just before the end of the semester, stop hearing from them. So they've completed somewhere else, and then they just stop. I mean, they're not concerned about a grade or anything else. So those are the thoughts that I have about that.
Yeah,
I anyone
heard
else?
a couple good questions.
Yeah.
About whether or not students use work experience to leave, and then maybe even how that impacts how they do in our courses. So I'd love to hear.
We have a real big. I'm sorry, Emily. We have a real dynamic work experience program, and it gets a lot of students into doors that they otherwise wouldn't get into, and at least from the standpoint of sooner. I'm just apprehensive, put a bunch of effort into this. There was a question that came up in one of the other conferences about doing this with appraisal. And I thought that was a good idea because, those guys, appraisers, it's always tough to find someone, but you have different government departments like the assessor or something that that might work.
Yeah, I want to let our faculty speak to maybe some of those concerns, because I know they're shared both just across the entire group, but also as faculty who are running these programs. I'm curious what you've both seen.
So one of the things that I have developed is a kind of a reciprocal agreement. So it's nothing in writing, but I researched the companies that I send my students to. I don't send them to places like Keller Williams because they have their school, but I have a couple of independent, well, they're not independent, but Berkshire Hathaway has a couple of, they're all franchise kind of things. So I have some brokers who have said, well, we don't do a program. That's my first question when I'm going out and looking for people to be mentors. Do you have a training program? If they do, then I don't go there. They have their own setup. But the ones that don't, it's turned out just by default that, they're sending their new inquiries to me for training or brokering up, once they've got their license and they want to. I've got 3 people from the Tustin Berkshire Hathaway doing classes right now for their broker's exam. And they have just been referred because Clara works with me on all of our programs. So, I think that's your due diligence in and of yourself is when you're going to find people, you seek that out. I mean, if they look like someone who's going to pilfer your students, then you drop them like a hot potato.
Okay, so in my situation where I have the mentors, the majority of them are brokers. Some of them are licensed real estate agents. Some of them are office managers. So if I have a problem with any of them, they're not invited back the following semester. And as far as other offices having training, I've found that in most cases there's training for the agents, but those offices that do have training, they have invited the interns to come to the training also. So they already have a leg up when they get into real estate. They don't have to start at the very bottom as a rookie. They've already got some knowledge and experience, and they passed the state exam, and it's great. So and some of my mentors, they also have real estate prep programs that they invite my students to and give them a discount. And what they're trying to do is they need to hire new agents. I am the easiest resource for them to hire new agents. And as far as offices who provide the classes or whatever they do, they provide them the books or they go through them for the books or something like that. But, I have students have asked me in the past, I don't get very many inquiries about this anymore, but they've asked me in the past, what's the difference between going to Cerritos College and getting my real estate license and going down the street to Century 21, for example. And I tell them, I said, well, if you go to Century 21, you're going to have to be self-motivated, read all those textbooks and everything on your own, take the quizzes and the exams, and then go take the state exam. And by the way, when you don't pass the state exam because you have no idea what's going on, you're going to come back to Cerritos College. So you may as well start here first. And that's what I tell them. And, I can speak to that because I used to do training classes in other real estate offices. Other offices hired me as their trainer prior to me getting into real estate. So I did the training. Now I'm at the college. And so all these offices will send their new or potentially new licensees to the college. So I haven't had that problem. Someone was asking too, how do I know that my students are not doing work that requires a license? Well, guess what? If my students are doing work that requires a license, there's one thing, my students have a very close connection with me and they will tell on themselves, not knowing that they are telling on themselves. And then I go to the broker and I say, you can't do that. But I've rarely ever had that issue, rarely, because it's the broker's license that's on the line also. They can get turned into the Department of Real Estate for that person doing work being unlicensed.
So it sounds like
Martin's asking.
in work
Sorry.
experience education, we have some built-in filters for bad actors. If we find we've partnered with a company that's not really serving our students and our programs, then they don't get to be
They don't come back.
providers in the future.
Yeah. Martin's asking, don't we want to place our students in the best real estate offices? The best real estate office is the one that suits you best. So, we go to a lot of trouble while selecting people that are reputable, selecting people that are, honest and are going to take on the role of mentorship very seriously. And a lot of the offices that I'm referring to that are, they have like the mill of putting people through the mill, like the training, like
Right.
Mary Ellen's talking about, read your book, do it yourself, do. That's not real training. I mean, I look for people that have support training, post-license training. I look for those kind of mentalities in brokers because the pre is often not a big moneymaker or anything for the brokers. They just want them, and they'll have some sort of an affiliation with a textbook company or someone to pump the licenses through. But I look for places that do support, post-license support in training and things like that, to get my students to understand, yes, how important the training is. But in what Mary Ellen was saying, I tell them, you're not going to get this kind of connectivity, this kind of experience through one of those other companies. You have to sell yourself. You have to tell them, just like when you're in real estate, you have to tell someone what sets you apart from everyone else. Why should they come and list their house with you versus somebody else? What do you offer? And that's what we have to do. We have to express to them what we offer over and above everyone else.
the California community colleges have a really good brand promise, right? Everyone is welcome. Our doors are open to everyone. We offer help with financial aid, even for students, no matter what their situation is. Like our doors are open. And I think that yes, there's always going to be a few outliers of students who don't show up or bad actors or students who are like, I can get this done faster on my own. That's fine. But the majority of students still really value our programs. Our enrollments are really strong across the state in real estate. I think because of all of you and what you do every single term to make sure that students get something better quality than what they could do on their own. Mike,
For
did you have
most
a
of
question
us,
about? Go ahead.
sorry, for most of us, we that teach real estate, we've developed our way of teaching real estate based on what was lacking when we learned it. And
So
that's what we want to give to our students, is what we didn't have the opportunity to experience.
Yeah. Mike, did you have a question about work experience?
No, I'm not going to say it's a question. I'm going to make a couple of comments here. I've never attended one of these sessions where the subject has been work experience. And the reason I am today is I'm looking for ideas for our program here at West Valley College. I'm just a part-time instructor. I have no clout, but I was one of those people that transitioned from a high-tech career into real estate via the JC. And it was my instructor at the college that turned out to be my mentor, because he ran a mentoring program at the college out of his office. And he used the classroom as a means of finding students that had, in his opinion, the right attributes. Okay. Now, today, I hold an AG appraisal license. I am an appraiser. I am not a licensed real estate agent, but I teach all the real estate classes at the college, me and many others. The point is, or the point that I want to make is, we used to have a program. The administration at the college killed it. They said it was a conflict of interest. The industry killed it because they changed the educational requirements for supervision of training of appraisers. Okay. I hate to say it, guys, but the very people that we want to help, including our own chain of command, make it hard to deliver students that have the experience and knowledge they need to be productive. We may be producing book-learned students, but we haven't enabled them with the skills to do the job. It's a whole lot more than reading a book and taking a state exam. So, and I don't know how we take down these barriers. And I'm talking the bureaucratic barriers, both at the colleges, at the DRE in Sacramento, the BE, I can't even remember. I always call it the OREA, because that's what the Office of Real Estate Appraisers was. Now it's a BEAR or something like that. I keep forgetting. Any event, I've made my point. I'll be quiet now, other than I'll reinforce that we are our own worst enemies in helping the students get the experience they need. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm glad you're here, and I hope this is helpful. Carol, you had your hand raised too. What's your question?
So I'm actually kind of wondering what our end game is, because my kind of understanding for the decades that I've been teaching is our job is to get people through the license exam process. And then with the certification programs, they can expand in specialty areas and so on and so forth. It's not about the actual, even though we have a practice class, obviously, but it's not really a deep dive into how the hell do you fill out the newly revised, again, 82-page purchase contract. And, do we have implicit biases? Well, yes, of course, we all do. But, it's like, suddenly we're obviously sociologists and psych, but all of us who've been out there in transactional world, we've lived it. I was a little bit concerned, like Mike was saying, about conflict of interest in terms of, reaching out to particular real estate companies, well, why did you pick that one instead of this one? And it's like, okay, don't even want to, they don't pay me enough money to deal with that politics. And the bureaucracy of it all. And so I'm thinking as I'm listening to all of this, because it's clear that people need more guidance and mentoring and doing implementation after they get their license, or in between they're taking their licensing exam and so on, which is actually the ideal time because they can start developing the skills and so on. And I know that College of the Canyons, we started offering principles and practices, and I'm not sure there's a third class, and maybe it's variable as non-credit, so that people don't have to worry about their grade. They don't care. It's just they need to pass. They need the knowledge so they can pass the exam. But when it all comes to push and shove, like this has been brought up many times, it's very personality. Some people think this business is, easy, and it's like it's not easy. It's simple. It's not easy because we're dealing with the humans and all of our weird little quirks that we have, and we all have them, in addition to our implicit biases. So it's like, okay, so how do we offer that opportunity? And maybe, and again, maybe we need to look at how do we get grants so we can offer an implementation class. And maybe it's, not a full semester. Maybe it's just, a couple of weeks of contract completion. Maybe it's a couple of weeks of, QuickBooks. Maybe it's a couple of weeks of, whatever it is that we need to focus on that's beyond as I call it, the foundation, which is what we teach. We teach the foundation, but we don't teach framing and electrical and plumbing and roofing and design. We do the foundation. And so in my head, it's always been kind of the broker's responsibility to teach all the other stuff. Yes. But there's a lot of that not going on. I mean, I had a transaction last year where the other agent obviously kept saying, well, I'm just the messenger. And in my head, I'm thinking, not in a court of law, but if that's what he's coming out with, that's scary. But again,
Cheryl, you brought up a good point too. The non-credit side of things is something we haven't touched on, and work experience education is now, it never was explicitly exempt, but now it is explicitly included. So non-credit can have work experience education, and it's been explicitly included this time. Do you mirror your programs in
the students are mixed. They're mixed. They just choose one or the other. So that's what I've just
I'm in my 4th semester of doing the mirrored classes too. I got them going. It's been a great experience. Yeah.
Well, and at COC we have the whole range. We have the in-person, we have the hybrid, and we have the online only. So we have, and I teach all the ways, and quite frankly, kind of gotten lazy. I mean, I really prefer the in-person because I like to see the light bulbs come on, or they're not on, and it's like, okay, I need to make a different example here. But I don't miss the commute sometimes, so because I'm going in with the commuter traffic going home, that sort of thing, but at the same time, but all the students are mixed. Nobody knows who's who, in terms of credit or non-credit. So it's like, which is ideal as far as I'm concerned. And but again, nobody. I mean, and when I took the class, it was in the really olden days when we only needed principals. I took it in 2 weekends, 4 11-day classes. We were living off of M&M peanuts, coffee, and some donuts. And I thought, at any point, we're going to be a raging group of people, sugar crashing, caffeine crashing, and raging through Northridge, California. We didn't, but it was possible. But it's never been purported that we were preparing us. I always like to say, when I went to UCLA, my parents went to a parent meeting and they said, we are not preparing your students for a job. We're exposing them to the rest of the world. And so it's kind of the same thing with real estate. We're not really preparing them for a job because when they come out, they may know some laws. They may know they have some references in the texts. I mean, I always say that principles text, that's your reference book. Keep it, get it, and keep it. If you're going to choose one book, get that one. because that's your reference book. And but in terms of actually, because I mean, I'm sure all of us, it's like the most common question: how am I going to get clients? How am I going to get clients? And it's just, you know, most brokers, they look at us as a piece of meat, and it's like, you're good for 1 or 2 deals, and we'll see if you like it. You know, and we have training, but there's no implementation. And when I was working for Fred Sands, which was a West LA, I'm sure Mike's familiar with Fred Sands, and I was the training director there. I would have agents say, "Oh, can, you know, one of your new agents help me?" And I said, as long as it's real estate related, do not have them photocopy, do not have them staple. They already know how to do that. They need to know real estate. And the other agent would go, "Oh, okay, never mind." You know, oh, can they hold an open house? We'll share the open house attendees. Oh no, the open house attendees are their clients. I was a little mama son there, you know, but it's like, we don't have really good implementation programs. And I think if we could, as a group, kind of come up with maybe, you know, again, an implementation class, it may not be, you know, a semester long on contracts. I don't think that's necessary, but it's just having modules, you know, that are specific, you know, that are 2 or 3 meetings worth, so that they can come back and ask questions and see what's what.
I have found that the brokers, I have found that the brokers like to do their own training. So one of the things when I first started in real estate that my broker had said to me and stuck with me all these years, she said, "I like to hire new people because now they don't come with any bad habits."
Mhm.
So that's one of the things.
It's the McDonald's theory. You know?
Well, it's true in a lot of ways, you know, because every broker runs their office differently.
Well,
And
but are the brokers taking enough education to know what's really going on? I mean, like, we have a big advantage, you know, because we get A, the repetition, and B, we're constantly being reminded of all the changes that we have to teach. Are the brokers doing that? Or are they just doing the glitter of the law and doing their 45 hours every 4 years?
I'm sure they're only doing their 45 hours every 4 years.
Yeah.
Because they're not required to do anything else extra. They're in the business to make money. So they're turning these people, these interns and new people, or any agent that they get, they turn them into successful real estate agents. If an office is not successful, they will not remain in business. Plus, real estate's a pretty small community. And if somebody's not doing their job, the word gets out. We know who not to deal with.
I think it's a numbers game, and they bring in as many people as possible. They don't have to worry about infrastructure anymore because they've got it. It's already set, and so many people work from home now, and so it's like, whatever.
The brokers that I work with, the mentors that I work with, that's not their belief at all. They believe that their agents.
Well, it just indicates the broad experiences. Because I don't recommend any real estate companies. I suggest you go to a large corporate, I go to a smaller, see where, and like you were saying, if I could read your name, I would say your name, Alana. You were saying it's like the right office is right for the right person. And I always say, just because your friend works there or your brother works there, you've got it. Because if you and the broker aren't, you know, simpatico, it's like, you might as well, you know, your hair is always going to be wrong, even if you're bald. You know, I mean, it's like there's always going to be something wrong, and you've got to go with the energy and feel like the broker is going to support you and guide you if you have a question.
So I have a class that I offer the last Tuesday of every 8-week course. I offer a Zoom meeting, and I bring on past students, and I also talk about the DRE application, and I talk about how they should interview a broker. I give them a spreadsheet. I give them a list of 40 questions that they could choose the ones that are most relevant to them, what's most important to them. And the list continues to grow because other students come back and say, well, I asked this question. You should add that to your list. So I do. But we have about an hour and a half to a 2-hour meeting on the Tuesday night from 6 to 8, basically, where students come on and they discuss the options that they have and learn about how they should interview a broker. And one of the things I always tell them is that you need to interview large, small, medium, right? You also need to be very aware that the people who are in the room with you are trying to get warm butts in seats. So their job is to try to connect with you. So you have to be able to see through the facades they put up as well. So you've got to ask the right questions and ask everybody the same questions so that you've got a base to be able to make a comparison. And, so that's something that, I really enjoy, and I get a lot of feedback, and people will call later and say, well, I've interviewed, 6 brokers and I'm really confused as to which one to go with. And, we'll talk about it in, over the phone or something and try and help them get it a bit more clear. But they have to make that decision for themselves. But I also have, like Mary Ellen, a lot of people who I do trust as brokers. I know how they work. I started with a big company. I was very happy with that big company. But there's a lot of people that aren't happy with the big companies now and prefer the little ones. But everybody has something different that they want. And, the lead production is a big thing. I have one student who buys Zillow leads left, right, and center. He's doing really, really well. But if you can't afford to pay for
$3,500 a
something,
month.
right? If you can't afford to pay for that, well, then you've got to know the ground roots ways that we used to generate leads.
Well, that's
And
what
you
I always say
have
to
that.
people now. We have to work. We have to work now. We can't just hope that something shows up in our lap, but we have to go out and do work. And that's what I tell my students as well. And it's just, the other thing is I always early on say, start going to open houses, get familiar with your community, know what's being offered for what price and so on. I said, and if a Keller Williams or an EXP or a Home Smart agent tries to recruit you, know that they have the multi-level marketing model here. It's not about you, it's about them.
Yes.
Don't be all puffed up because they want me to come work with it. It's because they want a piece of your pie, and it's like there's a lot of naivete, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, I mean, partly I think that's part of our responsibility to present. But at the same time, I do think that there's a tremendous need, whether the brokers want it or not, is that we need to give some baseline. Because if someone can go into a broker and say, I've taken this prep course at, wherever, West LA College, community college, and they've taught me, I'm familiar with the contract. I mean, and they can't say that they're an expert because nobody can be an expert because they keep changing it.
Yeah.
They being, obviously CAR attorneys, but if I'm familiar with it, and I've had some lead generation, I know how to do quick, whatever it is, whatever the decision is to build kind of that that implementation aspect, and then the brokers can fine tune it. But it's like when I first got my license, and well, we only hire people with master's degrees and PhDs, and I thought, oh boy, I don't even want to work here, and I came with both, and it's like I don't want to be limited because first of all, I'm not an academic elitist, but second of all, how narrow is that?
Mm-hmm.
Because those of us who are older with other experience, like Mike was saying, coming from the IT industry, he comes with a particular type of experience. I had a mother that had never worked in her life come to me and said, well, I don't have any experience. I said, you must be joking. You've got experience that people don't have any clue about. Now, I don't have any kids, but I watched my mom, and I'm thinking, okay, we've got a lot happening here. And so it's like those are the kinds of things that I think builds the confidence, and that's really what it comes down to. Does somebody have the confidence?
Well, that's where the work experience program comes in.
Oh, well, I understand that. That's my point, though. And it's just you can't get work experience if you're photocopying and stapling.
No, well, my people don't do that at all.
Nor mine.
Yeah.
No,
I'd love
they are
to
not.
how
Yeah.
you specifically make sure that students are actually getting good work experience, like with the meetings you have, Mary Ellen, like how do you support students working through problem solving some of those maybe early work experiences or what they're asked to do, or even students who maybe are put in situations where they're experiencing some sort of harm or, discrimination, harassment, workers' comp issues. Like, how does your program take those into consideration with how you help students?
Okay, most of the things you mentioned, we've never had a problem with. However, we have had issues where there is a personality problem. In fact, last year I had a mentor contact me and said, I'm having an issue with your student. She doesn't follow through. I just cannot have somebody like this, in my office, or I cannot mentor them because it looks like they're such a bad seed. They don't want that seed to grow throughout the rest of the agents also. So they want to eliminate them. Now, on the other hand, I had a mentor that I worked with for, gosh, many, many years, like 17 years. And he was proud of the fact that he hired every intern that ever interned in his office, except for one. And he was so hurt that that one didn't come to his office. So, I've had it at both ends of the spectrum where, I have very proud brokers. They will hire people. It's not an issue. Then I've had issues where maybe the broker doesn't get along with the student in the particular case that I just told you, or maybe the broker is not, or not just the broker, the mentor is not providing enough hours for the student because they have to turn in time cards and everything every single month. And they have to give me the hours that they worked and everything. And I need to know what's going on. And like I said, with the guest speaker, I mean, Alana alluded to the fact that she provides a list of questions to ask a broker. We review that. We take a class and we review that. And they're provided a handout. Here are the questions you should ask when interviewing a broker. And he's the broker himself who's providing the information. So he has no fear of that. And as for hiring people, if you're hiring a seasoned person, there is a way to check on their production. Okay, so we have that availability to us. We can check on a person's production. When they're new, we don't have anything. And I know Terrell was saying that, it'd be nice if they knew the contract and everything, but honestly, the broker's not going to take them at their word that they know the contract. They're going to make them go to the training classes because they don't know what they know in the contract. There's not like a test. And
well, it's not about taking the word. They would end up with some sort of documentation at the end, of certification or something that they took this particular class, and the brokers could be introduced to the class so they understand what the class is all about. That's
we
all.
have those
The
classes at CAR.
association,
Yeah, we have those classes at CAR with the
right, exactly.
certification and everything.
Yeah. I do that every year. They put up the new changes and everything. I do the listing and the buyers every year and they give you a nice little manual that explains every part, which really is, it's dedicated to you being able to explain those components to your buyers or your sellers, and it's broken down really well. And to duplicate that would be silly because it's out there and it's available.
Elena, how have you supported students who maybe were having difficult work experiences, or they started and they were confused about something, and do you have regular meetings with them?
Yeah.
About
weekly meetings, and also weekly meetings with the mentor. Especially if it's a new mentor. If it's someone that I've known for a long time and I'm comfortable, I might do, maybe every 2 weeks or something, and we might just communicate via text or email or something like that. But if they're a brand new mentor, I want more communication. I'll do a drop-in when I know that, I'll get them to say, okay, well, there's X amount of days, say 3 days this week, I'm going to be in the office with my mentee, and I'll just drop in whenever of those. I won't announce when. And if I walk in and somebody's on the copy machine, then I want some answers. I haven't had any problems. The people that have stepped up and wanted to be mentors have the right mindset, because they're not getting paid to do this. So they have the mindset of, I want to share my knowledge. I want to empower this student. So I think if they're places that are just wanting butts in seats and wanting to pump in more agents, you can tell when you talk to them whether they're really passionate about empowering the students.
They want new agents. That's how they build their office. So if they can have the new agents and they mold them the way they want to mold them to, that's their benefit.
I know there's more questions, but I have a few more questions that I want to make sure we get through just to speak to everything in the program that I developed. And then we'll have, it looks like plenty of time because we have about half an hour left to get to more comments. And I appreciate everybody being so involved and willing to share. So I'm curious for, again, Mary Ellen and Elena, how much time does it take per semester, per student on your side? I think that's something to be really explicit about, that this process can be more time intensive. So can you just speak to how much time it takes per students? And then also, what is your college's paperwork or process like as it exists right now? I know there may be some changes.
Okay, so I have 25 students and it keeps me very busy toward the end of the semester because all the paperwork has to be in at that time. We don't give any quizzes or exams, but I do make them write a project paper about their experience in the work experience program and with their mentor. I tell them it has to be 3 pages in length. I give them all the details. You have to tell them, 10-point font, single space, et cetera, 1-inch margin. I mean, I give them all the details so they can't miss. We also have a record sheet that we have to keep, what happens in each class. Each student has to put that together by the end of the semester. We have a statement of cooperation. We have an employer letter where the employer says, yes, they're going to cooperate with the real estate program. They have time cards every month. They also have a real estate application. The students have to download, and I hope they get rid of this. The students have to download a map from from the college where they're interning. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. When I brought it to my broker's attention many years ago, I said, we Google this. What are we doing? What do you mean you need a map? But anyway, she said it's state required. We can't get out of it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, this is absolutely ridiculous. But with the new changes, I will be very grateful, I think. As far as having a work experience coordinator, the first time I ever heard about it is at the CREEC meeting, and I was very grateful. And then I went back to my school and I said, so where's our work experience coordinator? They promised me they're getting one because I brought it to their attention, but we'll see. We'll see come fall 2024. I do all the paperwork on my own. I spend many hours. Everything has to be copied. I have to keep a copy. The school gets a copy just in case we get audited by the state, and the student gets a copy of their grade, how their mentor evaluated them. And that's what I tell the students too. It's also in my syllabus that I don't really grade them. It's the mentor that's grading them. And they have to write down 3 objectives they hope to accomplish during the semester. They are not allowed to write down certain things such as passing the real estate exam. I don't know if they have all the classes, and what if they don't pass the real estate exam? It's not going to turn out well on your evaluation. So, learning to do a market analysis, how to do seller's net sheet, buyer's net sheet. I give them a lot of choices that they can choose from to set their goals that way. And, it works out really well. I have them turn everything in Canvas because we don't meet in person. They have to upload the documents. And that was a challenge in the beginning for some students, but they're all getting better at it. As time goes by, we all get better at doing everything. And as a matter of hours, depending on the number of students, I would say at the end of the semester, probably 2 to 3 hours per student to make sure all the documentation is in. It's a tremendous amount of work, plus my other classes that I teach.
Right. Plus those meetings on Tuesdays.
Plus all the meetings. Yeah,
Okay.
It's more than you get paid for.
Yeah.
Yes.
It always is, right?
You have to love your work, okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
What about at Semiago?
Basically the same thing, the only difference from what Marianne said to what I do is I call it a reflective paper instead. So, a project paper, reflective paper, I mean, they have to reflect on their experience and what they've learned in that. And paperwork side of things, we're fairly new to the table as far as bringing in some of the new paperwork. As I said, I was working with SWIA, and we're trying to get a depository for papers and best practices and things like that to go across the board in the state so that everybody's using a similar sort of form and a similar process, and eliminating some of the archaic processes that were in place before, and getting a really good clear view of what is required now.
Great. I'm curious, Marilyn, since your certificate program, can you tell me how many units of work experience they can add to that? Do you have?
Yes, they can either take the 3 or 4 unit class. The 3 unit class currently is requiring 180 hours of internship during the semester, and the 4 unit class is requiring 240 hours. Now, both of those are going to be reduced because with the new information, it's 54 hours per unit is what the student is expected to intern during the semester.
Right. And how have you seen this addition help your completion rates for those certificates? Or do students see it as a barrier? Oh, I don't have time to do that? Or do they see it as really helping them?
They haven't had it yet. We'll know in the fall.
Okay, great. So that's, yeah, data to be gathered.
I'll let you know how it turned out.
Great. Yes. Are there any other specific questions? You can either ask them in the chat or raise your hand about how to do this or how to get started maybe, or even how to start building the connections that it seems like it requires in the industry to get really good experiences for students. I'm curious, anybody, you can put it in the chat if you want. Is anybody more likely to start thinking about this, or is this something you've wanted to do for a long time and this conversation has made you more likely to want to follow through on it, or is everybody sort of where they started?
I think each college should find out first, or each instructor here should find out whether or not their college has a work experience coordinator. That is the best place to start,
Yes.
in my opinion, because if you have somebody else who's doing the paperwork, that's wonderful. We can take care of all the site visits, making sure the students get into, the correct offices and everything to further their education. But if somebody else could do the paperwork, I would absolutely love that. But we'll see.
Yes. Yeah. The other thing too, see if other divisions or departments have work experience education already running, so that you've got somebody who can give you a breakdown of what they're doing already. One other thing, Mary Ellen, do you do a different rate for paid internship or paid work experience education versus unpaid work experience education?
Yes. Currently it's required, but it's all going to be the same.
It's going to be the
After
same.
we have this, pass in actually it's this month, February. We were supposed to have it all done by February. We've been through curriculum and everything, but it's not going to be implemented until fall semester.
Oh, yeah. I was glad to see that go away, because that was probably one of the hardest things to try and explain to a student. They're like, well, why should I be penalized? Because I'm being paid for it.
I know that, and then they all want paid internships, and I'm like, oh, that just doesn't work. Because even when you're in real estate, you don't get paid for showing up at the office. You actually have to have a transaction close.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I think that the administrative support of your college, investing in an actual staff person, or maybe even a faculty member who's doing this as full-time or release time, to be the work experience coordinator for your campus seems absolutely essential to start these programs, because on your side as a faculty member, it's so much more about the relationship with the student and then the relationship with their work experience, partner or mentor on that side. I'm curious, so the forms that we have here at Saddleback for work experience have descriptions of what students are doing, including on their time card and the goals that they set. Do you use the same you have the sort
No.
of same basic, you individualize each of those outcomes
What
for
we
students.
have for the time card is they have to put in the hours that they're working, say, for example, 10:30 to 2:30, and on the second line, they have to put the number of hours and then tally them up, and the broker verifies it with their signature.
Okay.
So, but they don't have to state what they're doing.
They don't say their task. Okay.
No.
What else would be helpful?
You know, it is a lot of work on the instructor, but it's well worth it when your students are getting jobs. That's the way I look at it. You know, my students are getting jobs. It's absolutely wonderful. You know, how many programs can say that?
Are there any success stories or like students that really stand out that?
Yes, I have a student who just became an office manager recently. I have another student that I sent a referral to regarding commercial industrial property. We have another student who moved forward in real estate investments, and he's on Facebook a lot talking about his investments that he's made. We have, who else was there? There's several others. Oh, and one of my mentors, every time one of the interns passes the state exam, he has them hold up their license and takes a picture and puts them on Facebook and says, "Oh, I have a new salesperson in the office. They just passed their real estate exam." I mean, he's a big cheerleader for the students, and the students need that. And it's really great. It's been a terrific experience for my students. And like I said, I have a lot of people, and to me, it's worth it. And I know it's extremely time consuming. I'm not going to, sugarcoat that. But then if you're in real estate, that's very time consuming too, to get up and running and make things happen. And it's just all part of the business.
Yeah, it's totally worthwhile. I have a student who just got a job. He's 19 years old. He's been hired as a property manager on a he's an on-site manager, and as part of that, he also gets a two-bedroom apartment as part of his compensation for the
Wonderful.
thing. So he
That's
lives
terrific.
on site. I mean, there's not too many people at 19 can live in Irvine in a two-bedroom apartment.
Mhm.
So, and I have numerous other students that come back and talk to my students. And I have an event coming up on the 13th of March where I have several of my past students coming onto campus, and a lot of industry professionals coming on to share their knowledge about all the different parts of real estate that they are a part of, and how students can be a part of that if they want to.
I think it's a very worthwhile program, and you don't have to start with 3 and 4 unit classes. I mean, you can start with a 1 unit class and see how that takes off. This way, it's not requiring a lot more of your time or the students' time. Especially with the new rules and regulations. I think that'll make it a little easier on the students. Depending on what the work looks like when they're finished it and roll it out, I can't tell you about that right now, but once we have that, it's got to be better than what we have. What we have is so archaic. It hasn't been changed in, I think, 30 or 40 years. And like I said, when you're telling people, "Oh yeah, draw a map," I say, no. You know what? Use Google Maps and please send that to me. Okay. Yeah. Do not draw a map for me. So who does that today?
Great. Well, I also put a link in the chat to remind everyone to register for our spring conference coming up in April. And I hope you found today's discussion valuable. I will post the recording for those of you and your colleagues who weren't able to make it, but I really appreciate you showing up today. Elena also posted the
The
CWAP
SWIA link.
SWIA.
Yeah, because you can look online to see all the updates. It shows the changes. It gives great detail. And this is the website that's going to hopefully have our best practices links on here.
That's going to be great. And if there's ever resources that anybody wants to share statewide, please let me know. I'm happy to post them on our website or link to them in our next email. Anything that you put together, if you want to share, hey, these are the questions that I use to vet a potential mentor, or these are the questions that I recommend students ask as they're entering the workforce or exploring where their place in the real estate industry is through our courses and through work experience. I'm happy to share all those resources. I think, especially with so many part-timers, I know we work better as a collective, and anything that I can share or be helpful with, I'm always happy to be the point person to do that. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Elena and Mary Ellen, for sharing your stories and your experience. Hopefully I'll see you all in April.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm more than willing to help anybody out if they want to get this up and running. I've helped other programs at the college get their work experience program up and running also. So I can help you, but like I said, as soon as we get the new forms and everything, that's going to make it so much easier, you know, to review and everything. I don't want to show you on all the old forms, this is what we're doing right now, and then have to show you again. Oh, but forget about everything I told you. Now here's the new stuff. So once we get everything up and running, I'll be more than happy to help anybody out.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. I'll see y'all again. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.